this kind of session, I think it's important to stress as well, is that like you could do this with the youngest of the youngest and the oldest of the oldest. And I think where you taper it is in what you expect, the level of detail you expect to come out. So I've kind of done the detail around the under 18, like that I'd be working at now. When you look at this, don't be thinking that you need to do this with under 8. Like you can still hit some of the detail, but how you word it can be really different. So like to start with, I've been like the last 2 clubs, so like at City and at Ipswich now, like rondos are a really important start to kind of get the session going. You can kind of see like on my notes and stuff how I kind of plan. And one of the quick fire questions is, what's your favourite book, or what's been the most impactful book? And Doug Lemov, A Coach's Guide to Teaching. This is like one thing I pinched where I was like, I'm really gonna like pinch this on how to plan and how to plan for like really narrow down my focus on what I'm looking for. So you kind of look at like the topics. So like in a rondo, it'd be passing, receiving, right? What do we want to come out? Plays to pass with a message and receive with the correct foot. So in this rondo, we're going to look at, do they receive off the front foot or the back foot? Do they pass with a message to tell the next person where they're going? The kind of key details. So what does world class look like? So kind of like the way I kind of see football is around 4 Ps. So it's possession, position, pressure, but then also underpinned by perception. I think perception works all the time. With possession, you're looking at passing with a message, recognizing when to play quick and slow in the rondo. And really your aim is to entice the defenders in to find the free man somewhere else. In the position, when you talk about position, you're looking at, can you see that? So your body shape, can you see the full box? Can you have open shoulders? Can you check your shoulders in between passes? So that's your timing of when to check. And just 2 kind of concepts we work around separating and standing. So separating is coming away from a defender and like separating off his shoulder, and standing like it made like I went and watched the grassroots game. A family member was in a grassroots game this week, and you hear, run, come to the ball, go, and like that. Listen, it's great for enthusiasm, of course it is, but also there's a massive value in standing still.
Standing still, yeah.
Like if you're in space, don't move, job done. Like if someone comes towards you, move away. If they're under pressure, go towards them. Like help them make the pass easier. So just really, really kind of clear stuff with that. And then kind of the things around the pressure. So nothing through. So defenders not letting a pass through them. Can you force one way? So can you work together? So like to body shape, shows them away. Force wide, win wide. That's kind of a thing we're big on. And then first thought forward. So when we regain, so like when we win it, can we get out the box? Our first thought is to escape the pressure and get out the box, whether that's myself or with a pass to the other defender. And can we set traps as well? So like really like intelligent defending. I think one of the criminal things you can do in a rondo is it becomes piggy in the middle and everyone just runs around. It's not and one of the big things I've kind of pushed myself on is the difference between, and like this is going to sound a bit mental, but the difference between a rondo and a box.
Yep.
Or a rondo is a coached exercise. A box is a social thing where I don't need to be anywhere near it. Like I'm like away and out of it. So that's kind of like where we'd start. And then like I say, with the planning for the likely errors stuff. So I always think you have to be careful of players crossing the feet in rondos. I think it's really good if you can let the ball come across you and play with your back foot, or control with one foot and pass with the other, like with it being in a tight space. So we talk about there. So if I see that, my response will be, can you adjust your hips to see where it's come from and where it's going? So that should help you stop you crossing your feet. And then another error that you normally see is like there's no pass. Sorry, the pass doesn't have a message. So just really clear. If you pass to the front foot, you're saying, give it me back. If you pass into my back foot, you're telling me to switch. And everyone thinking with that kind of mindset, the way I kind of see football is, and I won't go into it too much, it's probably another coffee club that, but like superiorities and how we speak with each other and gaining an advantage through that. So I believe like that's the way we start. That's the kind of, and there's loads of ways you can tweak these, like match day -1s. We do like little competitions, number of passes where you send defenders over just to keep it different. One of the under 18s coach at City had a brilliant one where it went down smaller sizes when you complete passes to score a goal. Like loads of ways you can do it, but that's just for me a good basic one where you can get loads of detail out and being really comfortable with what it is. Is it a rondo? Great if it is. Great if it's a box. You don't have to worry about that. It's a social thing. Like, that's fine. But like, when we're coaching, it's a rondo, and this is what it looks like. So that's
one of the things really important, I think, to try and drag out of that for people that are listening, is one of the bits you mentioned there about the size of the boxes changing for the guy at City. You said there about
like,
the size
yeah,
so that there's an end goal. And then at the same time as well, one of the things you mentioned was about the defenders obviously setting traps, setting their moment to try and win the ball.
Yeah.
But having the outcome of what they do once they win it, because there's so many of those boxes and rondos that the defender stops it and everyone goes, all right, it's our turn to swap over. I think if there's a real opportunity of transition and a reaction to once you're winning it or losing it, it obviously adds even more to that little level of intensity and competition and outcomes to it, as well as it being all the little coached stuff that you just mentioned.
And I think like we get that. So like, just to finish on that kind of bit, is like the rules at the top. So 20 passes in again is like a given. Megs in again is a great for a social one. And also to understand that if you give a Megs and it's not on, it's great, but you're going running. Like, you're going to have to go and get the ball. We also have one where if you win it in the first 6 passes, both defenders go out to kind of get that counter press and counter attack. So like, when the ball goes dead, right, get the next ball in. So coaches, we know, fire the next ball in. If you're not switched on, if you're arguing who's gone in, they're going to get to 6 and only one of you is going to get out. So it's that kind of like instant, right, we're in, we're playing, like, right away. Defenders have got an aim. If you can get it in them first 6 and like, we're really aggressive, great. And in possession, we need to build them passes up and get our rhythm quick, so we're all safe, kind of thing. And then we have like, we kind of work off 2 touch, but we have some progressions where we have a rule where you can't do 2 2s. So if I take 2, you couldn't take 2, you've got to take 1. I'm not a big fan of always doing it just 1 touch. I think like, you only really do 1 touch if you've got 1 defender. If I'm really honest, that's the way I kind of work. Like, 2 defenders, 2 touches, 1 defender, 1 touch. Like, kind of, that's the way it kind of works. And
if you're trying to get people to pass with a message, playing 1 touch isn't really a way to actually receive one of those messages, is it?
It's tough.
The pass might not be done like that.
Yeah, it's tough. It's to get to 1 touch in development is hard. It's more probably a first team, like, elite level, where you're going, you can probably get both out, but like, in development, it's tough. You really want to hone in on the coaching of it and use the opportunity to coach with it.
Within what you were talking about, you talked about rondo and the detail around the, keeping possession of the ball, etc. And then obviously the defensive bit that I touched on just there. A lot of people, I think, stick to one theme, but I think with one of the things you just mentioned there, if you scaled it down for a grassroots player or players team, it's could be a very good arrival activity for something that everyone turns up at the start of the session. You're waiting for kids to come in. There might be a team on the AstroTurf before you where you can go and get a little 10, 20 yard area for a box or a rondo, whatever one you want it to be. But people can coach attacking, they can coach defending, they can coach transition, they can take all the little bits that you talked about. But there's numerous different outcomes in the part of the session, isn't it?
100%. And I think like, one thing to stress is that like, people think like, and people used to think this way, all the coaches at City, we just do rondos and possessions. No, far from it. Like, everything's got a place. Like, everything's got a place. There's a time for an oppose, there's a time for oppose, there's a time for boxes, there's a time for games. The danger is if you do all of one thing, you miss out on like, so just variety of it. So like, we'll always have that at the start, but that doesn't mean that then that's all with it. Like, it might come up again. Like, so that one of the other practices, like a rondo transfer game, like a possession, a directional possession, it's got elements of a rondo in. But then that might mean that if we do that today, then on Thursday, we're only doing it once because we're going to put something else in. It's just having that kind of thought, that planning, that like, I think, well, Pep does rondos, but he also does a lot of other stuff. You know what I mean? Like, Jurgen Klopp does rondos. Like, Jose Mourinho do rondos. Like, most people do rondos. It's
of course they do. Yeah,
you don't have to do it all the time, and like it doesn't just it's just rondos. No, it's not. That's not the way it works.
But I think the other thing about that as well is, if it's again relating it back to people that might only see their players for an hour a week, or see a session for an hour a week, is nothing wrong with visiting it 2 or 3 times, is there?
No,
Do you know what I mean? In terms of, you know, I'm probably as guilty as this as anybody else, if it is guilt, but you forever want to change your session and change what you're doing and give the players variety, but you can still do that by doing a very similar session of setting it up in a different dynamic, whether it's a rectangle or a square or a circle or you know, those sorts of things that you can continuously stick to a thing, but manipulate the session over a period of time. Next thing you know, you've done a month.
That's the thing. I think the longer I'm doing it, I actually don't have that many sessions. I just have loads of different constraints, tweaks, whether it's area size, rules. It's still the same session base, but you can get loads of different stuff out of it. The next bit is like an unopposed technical. So this kind of theme of the session is like directional play and looking at the man on the ball facing forward. It's a really simple technical. It's one touch passing. The central players work for 3 minutes in there and then rotate round. This bit is about one touch passing, understanding directional play. So when we're talking about directional play, we're talking about it going up, back, and then through. Well, that's what directional play is, and the kind of third man concepts that everyone will know. Again, with the possession, so pass with a message, and in this we're looking at weight, angle, and speed. So when you play into the player, your angle of pass should tell him where to set next. Your weight of pass will tell him when to set. The speed of the pass will dictate the rhythm. We want a smooth pass. So if we want to play one touch, the player receiving the ball can't be thinking about controlling the ball. He's just got to be thinking about what's coming next. And one of the big things as well is avoiding the square pass. So that helps as well with the position stuff. But when it goes in, avoiding the square. Position is speed of movement. So don't get too far ahead of the ball. A big thing I believe in is that if someone's setting the ball, you should set it backwards. The reason being is it brings the back line up and then you play the third man in behind. If you get ahead of the ball, they end up flicking around the corner, and centre halves love that to come and pinch and nick the ball. Face forward. So again, the whole session's around getting the man on the ball facing forward. Why? They've got the best view of the pitch. You win the game by scoring goals. Well, it helps if you can see the goal. Work off each other. So the middle two finding different lines of passing. So the furthest pass being on the same side, nearest pass being opposite the ball. So they work off each other. And staying in the eyes. So a big thing is that, so this pass you'll see a lot of is, it could be a centre-back to a single pivot who bounces back. The centre-back knows that he's going to get out, and sometimes they can start creeping too early. And then it's really hard for the person to set, and he's like setting out his periphery rather than setting just in his eyes so he doesn't have to move his head. So just all them little things staying in there. And that kind of goes to the likely errors. So players getting ahead of the ball. So can you stay in the eyes of the person setting? And a bobble pass. So again, this is a technical, it's unopposed. So can we look at a smooth pass, punch through the middle of the ball with the chin and chest over the ball? And that's kind of, this part of the practice is where you get to the real like nitty gritty of the techniques, like real fine detail on it of like, where's your standing foot go? What's your follow through look like? This, if you were doing this with younger ones, you probably wouldn't worry about so much of the position stuff. It'd be more the possession stuff of passing with a message, of smooth pass, of avoiding square. The older they get, the more you can start introducing the tactical ideas behind the technical. But this is unopposed, but you can probably see there's loads of thought in this. There's loads of like, it's not just like passing around a diamond. There's loads of thought, there's movement, there's overlaps. I would draw all the arrows on it, but it gets quite confusing when everyone can't. There is a clip of, I believe, Erik ten Hag doing something very similar on it when he first went to Man United. So it's just, there's loads of thinking. So I'm all for, I believe there's a big place for unopposed work at any age, but I'm also a big advocate of it doesn't just have to be A to B to C to D with no thought and not demanding if it's unopposed, right, you've got to really stretch them upstairs and right, detail's got to be good. There's a tactical idea behind it. There's a real technical fine detail behind what we're doing.
Brilliant and great detail. I'm conscious that I don't want to sound like I'm coming away from the detail, but I'm just trying to help other people think about how they can use your session to be to work with their players. And I think one of the things that is really, really great with what you've just talked about is someone just plucking out one of them things that you just talked about. Do you know what I mean? So it might just be the little bit of movement to get space. It might be the little bit to make sure that they can see the way they're playing. You mentioned about not moving out the eye line. Might just be that one element of the session. So it might be two touch with an 8-year-old. It might not be one touch passing, but I think you've given us so much great information there. I think it's really important for people to be able to say, you don't need your players. You stress your players, I would imagine.
Yeah.
All of this now, and the intensity that they work at, and the types of passes that they play will be of a really high standard. But that then gives you the room to stress them to do the right things at the right time. Whereas, again, bringing it back to people working with younger players, just pluck one thing out. Just listen to the gems that Callum's just given us there, and pick one at a time to build up. And I think the beauty is that over a period of time, they will start to creep forward, and you'll be able to have 2, 3, 4 of them in your session.
You can build it up. I think, like, and a big one in this practice is, like, if you're working with under 6, 7s, 8s, ask them not to come towards the ball. The hardest kind of thing for a young player to do, but there's so much value in understanding space and my own space, and where, how do I position myself, and what am I positioning myself off? So at under 8, all I need to worry about is where the ball is, where my mate is.
Yeah.
If I worry a bit about the opposition, that's really good as well. Like, really good for the younger ones. But even something as simple as that, like, one of the big things we used to stress when we was at City is letting the ball come to you. So, like, you can teach that from under 7. Yeah. Let the ball come to you. Like, and if it's not coming to you and it's really slow, that's when you go towards it. But hold your ground. And you're right. It's turning the dial on what you want to get after on that practice. Like, really turning the dial on it. It's the same with this next one. So this, like, this possession's I class this as a directional possession, and it's 3 teams. One thing we like to do to value kind of defending is we play pointless. So, like, the lowest amount of switches against you wins. So rather than you get a point for switching, you get a point against you if you concede a switch. So it values the defending side. You, like, clean sheets are important, and as well if you score. So if you win it and score in one of the mini goals, you take it off. You take a goal off, so you get closer to 0. So if you're defending, you want to get to 0, lads.
Keep the score down.
Yeah. Like it's not like, oh, we've got 3 switches. No, the aim is, like, stop the switches, and we're going to work really. I think it helps with the enthusiasm and makes the session better when the scoring's on defending. I think when the scoring's on attacking and the team starts getting battered, what do I need to defend for? I've got a chance to attack in a minute. So I just wait for that. Like, I just wait for that and do the same to them. And we have something like a little rule that one of the other coaches, Sam at Ipswich, came up with, is like, it's got to visit the back player of the box, so it drags all the way out. So we, like, entice players out. It's a kind of good idea to drag all the players across. And basically the practice is dead simple. You're in kind of a 5v2. When you find the right moment, you've got to try and hit the furthest number 9 who sets back for the similar directional play to then slide a wide player. Again, you can go after loads of detail on this, angle and weight of pass and speed of pass. A big thing we stress is that when you play a pass in behind, you play it towards the goal line and not the throwing line, so you don't run off the pitch. You can teach that at any age. I was watching the grassroots game Sunday, and the amount of times the kids start running off towards the corner flags, and you're going, "Oh, the goal's in the middle." Like, try and keep everything towards that, and we'll be all right. Like so that's like a big. If I'm working younger down, that's a big thing. This might be one if I'm working with under 6, 7s, and 8s. I just put one defender in. One thing we do with this as well is we get real good physical returns. So when the defenders, if the ball gets switched, they have to race back to the poles, and the S&C are, like, working with them to, like, come on, get your high speed running in. Great with Litlands as well. They think game on. Like, you make it competitive with a race, so it just keeps the intensity. For, like, we have split servers as well, so it doesn't always come from the same side. So the ball comes in from either coach, but it can come from either side rather than always being from one side. And again, this links to the kind of whole theme of the session, man on the ball facing forward, best view of the pitch. In this bit, there's more of a thought of when to play through, around and over. We want to see loads of over in this. It's like the easy way out to just go over. So if we want to play through, that's great. What do we have to do before that? Well, we have to switch. We have to move it from side to side before we earn that right. Position again. So we start around separating and standing. The other one we kind of throw in this is splitting. So playing in between defenders and occupying two. So if you're working at older levels, like the best players occupy more than one player.
Yeah.
They affect more. So it's understanding that. We have a thing of kind of like, so if you're on the sides of the box, can you really, and this, I think you can do this even younger down, just to get them thinking, is ready to attack and defend. So can I be ready so that if the defender wins it, I'm not too far ahead of him, I can't recover. And as well, I'm not too deep, so that if I get the ball, he blocks the pass forward. I'm right on that shoulder. Similar to the Rondo stuff, open shoulders, checking in between. Pressure is exactly the same as the Rondo stuff. You probably see that a lot of the messages that come in first.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say there. I think one of the real big
way.
things, again, dragging it towards what we've referred to already, but is about the consistency of your theme.
Yeah.
Your length of your session will probably be longer than what most people would be used to using, and but it's still a consistency in what you've done. So from the rondo there and the messages on the passes and whatever order somebody might do it in, it's about sticking to a similar theme throughout your session, whether that be for the defender or the attacker that we were talking about earlier, where it relates to both.
That kind of goes back to like a lot of thing I've looked at around like memory load, and like I think we can, even if we've only got them for an hour a week, we can make that hour really worthwhile, or we can kill it by trying to teach them everything in that hour. You might only have an hour that week, but you've got 52 weeks.
Yeah.
Like take Christmas off, all right, 50, right. On average, you're going to get 48 weeks of the year to teach it, like 48 sessions to kind of get some messages across. Like you don't have to kind of go after everything.
No, you don't have to talk about passing messages, set pieces, throw-ons, possession.
Exactly. You don't have to go. You don't like. It's like having an handful of darts and hoping you hit the bullseye. Like it's not going to work like that, is it? It's like that kind of like leads into the game bit again. Is like I'm a massive believer. You have to have a game. Like you have to have a game. Like at any age, you have to have a game. Like scoring system, just to encourage kind of like looking forward, playing the furthest pass that we kind of looked at is if you score a normal goal, it's 1, but if you play off the end man, it's worth 2, just so you get that kind of, look forward, play forward. Offsides are in just to keep the intensity. So, but you can obviously play behind. It's really good for defending because you have to defend space in behind and think about screening. Score, you keep it. Ball goes out, starts with a GK just to keep the intensity and the match tempo. And again, I've just put on this that like, what does world class look like in terms of possession? I think the game context dictates this. So if you're 1-0 up, do you need to play forward? Do you need to force it as much as if you're 1-0 down? Like understanding like where you are in the game. The position stuff is exactly the same, and the pressure stuff is exactly the same. So you probably see, like I say, it's quite consistent. I do believe that like you've got to plan for your highest detail. And I might plan this session and I might only get one error. The error that I thought was coming actually hasn't come as often as I like. That's fine. Like there's still like, if you plan with this, you've got a really good start. If something comes up that you weren't expecting, that's fine as well to coach that. Like I think that's like where the coaching badges have took a good thing from, is that like years ago you had to coach a topic and like this was a topic and this is what you had
to find the topic.
It's like but it's not come out. It's like I'm still gonna like force it. Whereas now it's a bit more like you coach what you see a bit as well, and you coach what you feel, and you coach what's needed and what the players need. Because again, all this looks like what I don't want this to come across at is look what Callum knows. No, it's not. This is what I want to give the players. Hopefully I probably won't give it them all. So like the stuff around what does world class look like, they're just almost givens. if that makes sense. Like, they're the things we should always try to be doing. If we don't, we might just like drop a little seed in, you know, like just a refresher. It's not like, they're not over aggressive coaching points. All that detail on the side of the session isn't coaching points. This is what the best looks like, right? Are we striving towards that? So that when I sit and review it and I go, right, so in the technical, working off each other is what world class looks like, and we didn't do it well enough. So next time we do it, we need to think of a condition. Do we put a pole in the middle of the two central players so they can't stay on the same line? There's something blocking them.
Having the game, I think, is massive all the time. It doesn't always have to look exactly like the exact game, does it? You know, I think that's one thing, especially when you're working with younger players, is that we have this obsession. It needs to look like a proper football match.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. And sometimes they're not quite ready for it to look that way. So I think the other thing that I'm sure most people will really like and relate to, and I personally do, is there's no real complications in it. Your complication comes from the information and the detail and what you're coaching and being able to spot it. And
anyone can look at my session. I think the thing of what might be is that you might take the setup and you might see something miles better that takes it in a completely different direction of coaching. That's absolutely fine. I think, like, you might not believe the way we play football's right, so you don't need to copy it. You know, I was really happy. I sent it to a group of like the coaches at the time and said, Ten Hag stole this off us, lad. I know where he probably got it from, and I probably stole it off the same source. So it's that game, the current under-10 coach at Man City, it was one of the best things he ever showed me, because it just used to cause absolute anarchy. Like, some of the rules he put on it, some of the, like, we'd have tears, we'd have like but it's great. Like, really stress the players. Like, he put conditions on it around, if you score off the end man, the game's done. So it really forced the kind of like playing through, but then it made the defending super intense because you couldn't let anything through. So if you were working on screening and sliding, and you can take it where you want. It's like, it's
if you're a new coach, Cal, and obviously so people will be new coaches who are looking at this, what is the one bit of that session that you would still, as a new coach?
I think one thing that I probably didn't value when I first started was how much stress you can put on an unopposed practice. So, like, if I was a new coach, I'd be going, I can get all of that out of unopposed. Yeah, you can. Like, if you demand more out of it, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes you haven't got the luxury of being able to do everything opposed. Like, you might not have enough players to, like, if you've only got 5 players, it's going to be really hard to do everything opposed all the time. So it's like, how can you, I've got 5 players tonight. Like, what can I do unopposed to get them, like, stressed, but keep them improving, other than just going round a diamond, like, or round a square, or like, what can I do? Like, so that probably be the big things. Like, what can I get from that? And the other bit as well is like the planning. like I didn't realize it when I first started, and my planning's took like loads of growth over the years. Like if you speak to anyone that's worked with me, my handwriting's terrible. Like, horrendous. I look like I write with my feet. So like, I've had to get really good at like finding sports session planner. I made my own on PowerPoint to see if that worked better. Like, just like, if I'm a new coach, finding like as quick as you can what works for you. What does planning look like for you? Like, what works for me to get the best out of me and the best for the players? What does reviewing look like for me? Like, if we don't do that, if we're not doing that, then we're giving the players an excuse not to do it. We're giving it
to do it. Yeah, that's right.
Like, we're not role modeling the behaviour that, like, we're expecting. It's not fair, that.